Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all doing well and enjoying the long weekend. It's a long weekend here in Canada. This is where I talk about the books that I'm reading, and I like to read diverse books, and I highlight Canadian literature. So if you are new, thank you so much for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to be talking about the Reading Across Canada Challenge. And I'll be giving you some recommendations for July and July's prompt. Now, I know I'm still a bit behind with this, but we are getting there, and we are also still compiling your responses. For those of you who have responded, thank you. We are asking for your best CanLit books of the 21st century. So Lindy from Lindy's Magpie Reads and myself have been receiving your votes. If you haven't already voted for your top Canadian books and you want to, there's still time. I will leave links below so you can check out all the details and you can have your voice heard. It's been a lot of fun to see the list change and see what books are kind of climbing to the top. And then hopefully, once we have that list, it can inspire people to read more CanLit, and maybe give us some ideas for, those doing the Reading Across Canada Challenge who are looking for some new recommendations. Elizabeth from Bookins and Books also put out a video sharing the books that she's voting for. So I will leave that video below, and the link for that. It's definitely worth checking out. If you don't know what the Reading Across Canada Challenge is, it is basically a reading challenge that encourages people to read Canadian literature, Canadian authors, Canadian stories. So this year, every month has a specific prompt, and you can follow that or not. So some people try to read a book for each province and territory, and that is fine too. It's really a challenge that you can do however you want, as long as you're reading CanLit. I will leave links below to the playlist of all of those videos, to the introductory video which has more information, and then also to the prompt sheet that has all of the prompts for the year. The challenge is also set up on Storygraph. A huge thank you to Just a Bean Reads for that. So please go and check it out there if that's how you like to keep track of the books that you're doing, if you're doing the reading challenges. So the prompt for July is to read a book written by a Canadian celebrity or public figure, or a Canadian book about a Canadian celebrity or public figure. So there are so many out there, but and I have a lot here to share with you. I'm going to share some of the books that I've read that are on my shelves, but there's also a few on this that are on my radar that I still haven't read. And I'm not going to go into great detail about these because there's a lot to go through. But I'm going to give you kind of a brief description if I can. So since we are in the midst of the Olympics, I thought that I would share 3 books by Canadian Olympians. And the first book is by one of my favorite Canadians of all time, Man in Motion by Rick Hansen, who is from British Columbia. And this is an older book, but Rick Hansen has had a huge impact on Canada. In the early 70s, Rick was in a car accident, which left him a paraplegic. And in the 80s, he was a Paralympic in wheelchair racing, and is mostly known for his world tour, where he wheeled around the world, raising money and awareness about accessibility and inclusion. I can talk for hours about Rick Hansen, so I will stop there, but this is definitely a book to check out if you haven't. Next, I've read Open Heart, Open Mind by Clara Hughes, who is from Manitoba, and she is a dual season Olympian because she has won medals in the Summer Olympics, and that was for cycling. And she's also won medals in the Winter Olympics for speed skating. I was going to say skiing, but no, speed skating. She's also an advocate for raising mental health awareness. And she was a passionate defender on Canada Reads in 2016 for The Illegal by Lawrence Hill, which ended up winning. And of course, I have to mention Mark Tewksbury and his memoir, which is called Inside Out: Straight Talk from a Gay Jock. Mark is from here in Calgary. He's an Olympic swimmer and an advocate for the LGBTQIA2S+ community, and for equality in sport. Plus, Mark reads, and if you've been following my channel for a little bit, you may remember that Mark was a defender on Canada Reads in 2022, and I had the chance to talk to him about that experience and what that was like for him. So I will leave a link below to that video if you want to check that out. Next up, I have 3 other inspirational Canadian figures or Canadian heroes. Someone I mention a lot on my channel, Romeo Dallaire. He was the leader of the UN peacekeeping mission when the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis happened in 1994. And he went against orders and stayed once the genocide started and tried to help as many people as he possibly could. Dallaire has written 4 books, all nonfiction. There's his memoir, which I didn't grab, but it is Shake Hands with the Devil. And he talks about his experience with PTSD. He does that mostly in Waiting for First Light. And then the book that I still have to read is They Fight Like Soldiers, They Die Like Children, which talks about his work to try and eradicate children soldiers. And then his most recent publication, which I've talked about a couple of times, is The Peace. I've mentioned that in my May wrap-up, so I can leave that link below if you're interested in hearing more about that. I already talked about Rick Hansen, but someone who every Canadian knows is Terry Fox, and he's remembered and honored every year. So for those who don't know who Terry Fox is, his dream was to run across Canada to raise awareness and funds for cancer research. Terry had lost a leg to cancer and began his run in 1980. And unfortunately, Terry died before he could finish his run. But every year, Canadians across the country do the Terry Fox run. Millions of dollars have been raised in his name. And there are a few books about Terry. The one that I read, now, I think I probably read this when I was in like grade 7 or 8. So I might have to do either a reread or find something else. But it was Terry Fox, His Story by Leslie Scrivener, which details Terry's life and the inspiration for his Marathon of Hope. A more recent inspirational story is Peace by Chocolate by John Tattrie. This is about Tarek Hadhad and his family's journey from Syria to Canada. Some of you may know Tarek as a defender for Canada Reads. Also in 2022, his story is about how his family immigrated to Canada and they started their own chocolate business called Peace by Chocolate. They support other immigrants and they spread the message of peace. So I still need to read this, but I did recently watch the film. Next up, I have 3 world-famous Canadian scientists to talk about. First up is An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth by Chris Hadfield. Hadfield is an astronaut who has flown in 2 space missions. Can't speak. He is just really incredible. He really brought space to us and put Canada on the map during his time in space. He's a musician and he's written a children's book called The Darkest Dark, and it's about a young boy who dreams of being an astronaut. He has a book of photography, which is amazing if you like photos. It's the photos that he took when he was in space, and it's You Are Here, Around the World in 92 Minutes. He's also written 2 fiction novels that take place in space, The Apollo Murders, and the sequel, which I haven't read yet, but it is The Defector. So if you have a lot to choose from when it comes to Chris Hadfield. Another very famous Canadian scientist is David Suzuki. If you are Canadian, you have definitely heard about the show The Nature of Things. It's been, on TV, I think, since the 1960s. I really want to read his autobiography, which is called David Suzuki, The Autobiography. Very creative title. It's been on my shelf for a while now, and I'm really interested in learning more about his life. He had written an earlier book when he was 50, but this includes his life up until, I think, till he was like 70-ish. So I'm really interested in learning more about his experience and his family's experience in the Japanese internment camps that were here in Canada. There's still like so much of that I need to learn more on that subject. So if you're interested in his science, there are also several books to choose from. I have read his book Tree, A Life Story. It is by him and Wayne Grady, and it's a story of a single tree, and it shows how it's connected basically to everything around it, including human beings. He has several books to choose from, so you can definitely check him out. The next scientist also focuses on trees, Suzanne Simard, and her memoir is Finding the Mother Tree. So this is both a memoir with nature writing mixed in, so it has I would say, an interesting combo. Suzanne Simard was also a defender for Canada Reads. There seems to be a theme here. She was on the same year as Tattrie had and Mark Tewksbury, so they were all defenders together. The next category that I have books to recommend is TV personalities and comedians. I have 4 people to recommend. And first is Alex Trebek, who was the host of Jeopardy! This is his autobiography, The Answer Is, Reflections on My Life. And this is a good autobiography if you are a fan of, Alex Trebek or of the show Jeopardy! It covers Alex's entire life. It's definitely worth a read. Peter Mansbridge is a well-known Canadian name for sure. He was a news broadcaster, news anchor on The National, and I would say like one of the most well-respected and trusted sources for Canada. And he has written several books, of which I still need to read. I think checking out any of them, though, would be, very interesting and would definitely learn something about Canada. So he has Off the Record, Extraordinary Canadians, and How Canada Works, and that's just to name a few. Another popular Canadian name is Rick Mercer. He's known for his comedy, mostly his satire, and putting many Canadian places on the map. Again, he has several books to choose from. He has A Nation Worth Ranting About, and Rick Mercer, The Final Report. He has several others, but his most recent publication is The Road Years, which is a continuation of his memoirs. So if you were looking for something comical, any of Rick's books I think might be a good choice. Now I'm saying that, but I haven't read them yet. So another comedian that I wanted to mention is Ali Hassan, and his memoir is called Is There Bacon in Heaven? I still need to read this. I really want to, because I have always been very impressed by Ali Hassan. He's a stand-up comedian, he's an actor, and he's a CBC host. So for those who follow Canada Reads, you will already know him because he's been the host for the last several years of Canada Reads. You may have also seen my friends at Canada Reads American Style and myself. We have talked with him almost every year that we've been kind of following, so I can leave a link to those videos below. And he's always a class act. If you are into politics, then you might be interested in Wab Kinew and his memoir, The Reason You Walk. This memoir focuses on the year 2012 when Wab reconnects with his father, and it's after his father has been diagnosed with cancer. And this has been on my shelf for so long, and I really do need to read it. Another political figure is Jody Wilson-Raybould, and her political memoir, Indian in the Cabinet, Speaking Truth to Power, is about her time as Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada. She's written a couple others, From Where I Stand and True Reconciliation, How to Be a Force for Change. Both of those books talk about reconciliation, and they give some practical ways that we can all take action in the work of reconciliation. Next up, I have 3 singers to bring to your attention. I'm going to start with Jan Arden, who is a singer from here in Alberta, and she is also very funny. When you see her in concert, it's like also seeing a comedian. She's touring with Rick Mercer a bit, and Jan Arden writes her own lyrics, but she's also written a few books. I've read If I Knew, Don't You Think I'd Tell You, which is it's a short little book. It's a very quick read, and it includes journal entries and drawings that she's done. It has, like, I'd say, little anecdotes, and in some ways it feels more almost like a poetry book. I've also read Feeding My Mother, which is a book that focuses on Jan and her mother and caring for her mother while her mother had Alzheimer's. I'm also very interested to read her newest publication. It's called The Biddlemores. This is her first novel, and I've heard it's very funny, and I'm hoping that it will be a good read when I do get a chance to get to it. For something a little different than everything else on the list, I have The Secret Path by Gord Downie. Gord was the lead singer for The Tragically Hip, a very popular group here in Canada. And The Secret Path is a graphic novel. It's illustrated by Jeff Lemire, and it tells the story of Channy Wenjack, who was a young boy who died while trying to escape a residential school in the 1960s. And then another Canadian singer that probably everyone will know is Leonard Cohen. Cohen has several books. I have many on my shelves. They're mostly poetry books, and I'm going to share a few of them from my shelf. I have Beautiful Losers. I have the Book of Longing. And then his final book, which had just been published just before he died, or finished before he died, and then published like the year after I think he died, and that's The Flame. And then the final category, and the biggest category in this case, if you are still looking for some inspiration, is actors. I'm not going to take too long to go through these because you have probably heard about all of them. So if you haven't already read Matthew Perry's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, now is your chance. You can read it, because Matthew Perry was a dual citizen of the US and Canada. He grew up near Ottawa, I think time in Ottawa and Toronto. Michael J. Fox has also written several books. I've read 2 of them, and then, I have to be honest, I kind of gave up because I found them a little dull. But I did read Lucky Man, which is the autobiography that came out a couple of years after he announced that he had Parkinson's. So once the public knew that, then these books started coming out. So I also read A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Future, which was a very quick read. It's, I think, less than 100 pages. It's about, what we can learn when life goes just a little bit awry. And then he has a couple of other books too. If you are interested in checking them out, then please do so. Another memoir on my radar is Run Towards the Danger, Confrontations with a Body of Memory. And this is by Sarah Polley. This is about Sarah Polley, and after she learns how to heal from trauma, she realizes that she can apply what she has learned to other parts of her life. And I've heard really good things about this memoir. It's actually come up like 3 or 4 times in the past week or so. And I'm taking that maybe that's a sign that I need to get to it. Another memoir that has had a lot of buzz is Page Boy by Elliot Page. Probably the most famous trans man in Canada. I have yet to read this, but it's definitely on my radar, and I've heard really, really good things. So yeah, I will eventually find out for myself what I think of this book. Another memoir on my radar is We Were Dreamers. It's an immigrant superhero origin story, and that's by Simu Liu. This has made it onto a few book lists here in Canada, and although I haven't read it yet, I am very intrigued about Simu Liu's story. So one day I may pick this up. If you were like, enough with the memoirs, Jolene, the last book on the list is really a series, and it is not a memoir. It's a graphic novel series that it doesn't appeal to me at all, because you all know I'm not really a graphic novel kind of a gal, but I'll probably never read this, but many of you may be interested, so I did want to bring it to your attention. And the series is called Berserker, and it's by Keanu Reeves, Matt Kind, and it's illustrated by Ron Garney. So there are several books in the series, and there's a few spin-offs. So if this is like a world that you want to get into, it seems like there's plenty to kind of whet your appetite already. The most recent release was in July with the book called The Book of Elsewhere. So if you are a Keanu Reeves fan or a comic book graphic novel fan, then these might be ones for you to check out. Okay, that was a lot of books. So hopefully there's something there that, interests you, that might pique your curiosity, and hopefully it helps you to try and find a book for this prompt if you haven't already. So please let me know what you have read or what you are planning to read for a book written by or about a Canadian celebrity or public figure. What books would you recommend? What should I add to the list? I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.